Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another video here on the channel, and today is going to be one I've wanted to do something similar for a while, and I'm going to be making more Rock Band content, and I've already done all the planning, and I just got to do the recording here, which is what I'm doing now. And that is, I'm going to be completely re-tiering the entire Rock Band 4 base set list, on-disc set list, in terms of what I find to be the easiest and hardest and everything in between for all 65 songs on the on-disc set list for Rock Band 4. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing, and part of the reason I wanted to do this because, well, one, I just think it would be cool, but also because, specifically when it comes to the Harmonix games, people have been having issues with the Harmonix difficulty tiering. From what I could find, dating all the way back to 2008 with Rock Band 2, and I get it, because Harmonix, they've gone on record numerous times saying that the way they want to do it is, they obviously do want to take into account difficulty, but they also want to make what they feel is a really good mixtape for every tier. But regardless, enough's enough, and it's time to start. So, first things first, we gotta know, for those of you who don't know, I'll go through and tell you what the on-disc tiers looks like for Rock Band 4. So let's jump into that right now. So right away, oh, and I guess also for the record, from Rock Band 2 all the way to Rock Band 4, there were 7 difficulty tiers. Now, I want to say Rock Band 1 is different and had 9 difficulty tiers, but they took out two of them later. So most of the games have 2, but if you wanted to see me do more of this, maybe even Rock Band 1, I would, of course, love to do that, and I may even still do it anyway, because I think the idea would be fun, but I would, for Rock Band 1, I would do 9 tiers, just because that's how the game works. Anyway, so, Rock Band 4, its tiering is like this. They say the easiest song in the warm-up tier, which you'll see it on screen. The tiers are denoted by dots being filled in for the instruments, and of course this is on the expert guitar difficulty. This is for expert guitar, and warm-up tier has 0 dots. That's what it's also known as. And the easiest song, according to Harmonix, is Centuries by Fall Out Boy, followed up by Free Falling by The Warning, and then Fever by the Black Keys, I Will Follow and Cedarwood Road by U2, What's Up by 4 Non-Blondes, The Wolf by Mumford & Sons, Turn It Around by Lucius, and The One I Love by REM, and that rounds out their warm-up tier, their easiest tier in the game. Then the next tier is One Dot, also known as Apprentice, and Apprentice starts off with Tongue Tied by Group Love, Spiders by System of a Down, The Warrior by Scandal, Uptown Funk by Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars, V-Bomb by Dark Wheels, Arabella by the Arctic Monkeys, I'm Electric by Heaven's Basement, Still Into You by Paramore, and Little White Church by Little Big Town. Then 2 Dots, aka Solid. The songs are You Make Love and Fun by Fleetwood Mac, Light Up the Night by the Proto Man, Friday I'm in Love by The Cure, Follow You Down by Jim Blossoms, Albert by Eddie Japan, Short Skirt Long Jacket by Cake, All Over You by Live, I Miss the Misery by Hailstorm, and The Feast and the Famine by Foo Fighters. Then we have Moderate, which is of course 3 dots. And Moderate is Somebody Told Me by The Killers, Your Love by The Outfield, Light the Fuse by Sly Diggs, Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison, Prayer by Disturbed, My God is the Sun by Queens of the Stone Age, I Bet My Life by Imagine Dragons, Violent Shiver by Benjamin Booker, Kick It Out by Heart, and that rounds out Moderate. So then we go to 4 Dots, aka Challenging tier, and that and that is Ain't Messin' Round by Gary Clark Jr., Lazaretto by Jack White, A Passage to Bangkok by Rush, Cold Clear Light by Johnny Blazes and the Pretty Boys, Knock 'Em Down by Doug and Cover, Birth in Reverse by St. Vincent, Suspicious Minds by Elvis Presley, The Impression That I Get by the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, and The Seeker by The Who. Then we have Nightmare, which is 5-dot difficulty, and that is Milwaukee by The Both, Panama by Van Halen, Little Miss Can't Be Wrong by Spin Doctors, Recession by Jeff Allen, No One Like You by Scorpions, Mainstream Kid by Brandi Carlile, Toys in the Attic by Aerosmith, Pistol Whipped by Tijuana Sweetheart, At Night in Dreams by White Denim, and Miracle Man by Ozzy Osbourne. And then the Impossible tier, we have Super Unknown, and the Impossible tier, quickly, is denoted by 5 little devil symbols, meaning it's the hardest tier. It's called Impossible for a reason. That starts off with Super Unknown by Soundgarden, That Smell by Leonard Skinner, Dead Black Heart of Ice by Soul Remnant, Dream Genie by Lightning Bolt, Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo by Rick Derringer, Caught Up in You by 38 Special, Start a Band by Brad Paisley and Keith Urban, Hail to the King by Avenged Sevenfold, Halls of Valhalla by Judas Priest, and Metropolis Part 1, The Miracle and the Sleeper by Dream Theater. And that is every single tier that Harmonix had for Rock Band 4, the way they set it up, in song difficulty order. My warm-up tier, based on, again, how I think the difficulty should be, not doing some sort of like weird mixtape idea like they do it. And again, I think the way they do it does work, but I want to do this solely based on what I think is actually the most difficult. And obviously this is all my opinion and based on my own skill level, and I'm not a top player by any means. I can pass almost anything on Expert, but ask me to like 5-star anything on Expert, and then there's some problems, you know? I can 5-star a lot on Expert, but if you're getting to like the top skill ceiling, like look, I'm not passing through the fire and flames without no fail turned on. Let's say that. But like I said, it's all based on what I think, my opinions, my skill level. Things will vary. But I did set it up based fully on difficulty, and that's the only metric I used. So, what I think warm-up tier should be. Regardless, I think Harmonix nailed it for the first 3 songs in warm-up tier. Centuries, Free Falling, and Fever, I think, are all easily the easiest songs in the game. I think they got it right. But the first thing that is different here, I personally think What's Up by 4 Non Blondes, which is still in warm-up tier, but I bumped it down a little bit. I think it's not that much harder than Fever in the first 3. So my 4th song is What's Up by the 4 Non Blondes, and then I put Turn It Around by Lucius. Again, still in warm-up tier, but it comes next instead of being at the bottom of warm-up tier. And then the first big change here, I have what Harmonix has in the solid 2-dot tier, Friday I'm in Love by The Cure. I personally bumped down to warm-up because Friday I'm in Love is a song that I basically always FC. And if I don't happen to FC it, and if I don't happen to FC it and I have a shit miss somewhere, I still easily gold star it. I think Friday I'm in Love is a super easy song. I don't think there's anything difficult about it. And knowing how easy it is for me, I think that would mean that it's basically easy for everyone, because again, I'm not that good. So yes, I think Friday I'm in Love is not a solid tier song at all. I think it has to be warm up. It is easily one of the easiest songs in the game. So I bumped it down 2 tiers down to warm up tier. And then instead of The One I Love by REM being considered the hardest song in warm up, I bumped it down or up however you want to look at that. I put it right underneath Friday I'm in Love in the warm-up tier for me. And then I have Cedarwood Road and then I Will Follow, both U2 songs but flipped around, near the bottom. And then Uptown Funk, I want to say, if I remember right, yes, it's an Apprentice song, a 1 dot. And I bumped that as what I think is going to be... And I bumped that into what's, for me, the hardest song in Warm-Up, but I think it's still a Warm-Up tier song. So that is my Warm-Up tier: Centuries, Free Falling, Fever, What's Up, Turn It Around, Friday I'm in Love, The One I Love, Cedarwood Road, I Will Follow, and Uptown Funk. And then moving into Apprentice, we already have another change, and that is The Warrior, I put as the easiest song in Apprentice. Spiders by System of a Down stays where it's at, second song in Apprentice. And then I actually bumped Arabella down a little bit and put it right below Spiders instead of being higher up in the tier. And then I bumped Still Into You down as well, having it right after Arabella. And then V-Bomb comes next with me, which I think V-Bomb is a little harder than the first 4 here. And then another song I actually bumped down 2 tiers. Your Love by The Outfield is, of course, like we said earlier, a moderate song according to Harmonix. Again, it's a song I always do super well with. I don't... Like, there can be a little tricky bits, I think, but I don't really think there's anything hard about this song. I love this song. I play it all the time. It's one of my favorites to play, but I don't think it's really difficult. I always do really well on it, so for me, I bumped Your Love down 2 tiers into Apprentice, being right about in the middle of the tier. Then another moderate song that I personally bumped down 2 tiers into Apprentice is Brown Eyed Girl. Again, I don't really think there's anything too difficult. It's a really short song that does admittedly move pretty fast for its expert guitar chart. But like outside of the speed, there's not really anything too bad about it. And again, it's super short as well. Then I bumped You Make Lovin' Fun down just a little bit. Harmonix put it in solid. I bumped it down just a tiny bit near the bottom of Apprentice, because I think it's a super easy song that just has a few very small, like, tricky hopo sections. Not even sections, just a couple of small, kind of tricky, like, little hopo bits mixed in there. But I think I think it fits in Apprentice better than Solid to me. Then we have Little White Church, and then I also bumped Follow You Down from Solid as well to be the hardest song to me in Apprentice. Now, Solid tier. Solid 2 dots for me. Another big change, and it's the first song that I really, like, bumped up in terms of difficulty from what Harmonix and Rhythm Author said. Because they say, like we read earlier, they put The Wolf by Mumford & Sons in a warm-up tier, and this song, if it's easy for you, cool, but this song, I only just finally 5-starred on Expert for the first time when I was replaying all, like, the on-disc songs for this video. That's the first time that I ever got a 5-star on this song, and it felt good in the moment, and it does still feel good, right? But that means for me, The Wolf easily can't be a warm-up tier song, and it's a song I think genuinely is still pretty tricky, especially the intro and every chorus, where it genuinely feels like alt strumming is almost necessary. And that's one thing I've always felt like with Harmonix. I do think that they underestimate, like, under-tier alt strumming, genuinely. Which is crazy to me, because, like, they'll say a song that requires alt strumming is, like, they'll put a song that requires, like, some serious alt strumming, like endurance, which The Wolf isn't an endurance test by any means, but I do think alt strumming is almost required for it. it definitely will make it easier for sure. But like, yeah, they'll put songs that require alt strumming really low, but then they'll put songs on bass that are really easy. That'll just be like, okay, you stay on one fret for a little bit, then you switch to another fret. And like, why, like, for example, in Rock Band 4's bass set list even, and we can do that as a video too, potentially, like, Follow You Down on bass is considered nightmare difficulty, and that's literally, basically, just, okay, stay on one fret for a little bit, switch to another fret for a little bit, switch to another fret for a little bit, switch to another fret. Like, it's like, yeah, you are using all the frets on bass, but like, Follow You Down is not nightmare difficulty. Arabella is not nightmare difficulty on bass. Still Into You is not nightmare difficulty on bass. Somebody Told Me is not nightmare difficulty on bass. You get where I'm going with that, right? Whatever. Different conversation, I guess. But you get my point, I'm sure. Harmonix is always a bit weird with how they tier things, for sure. And they definitely, they definitely consider different techniques. Again, I disagree with some of the techniques that they say are easier, I guess, for sure. And obviously the whole process of tiering is going to be subjective, because what's difficult for me is not going to be easy for someone else, and what's easy for me will be difficult for someone else, you know? It's all subjective in that regard. So there's no right way to do this. So don't take anyone's word, even Harmonix's, as gospel in this case for tiering. It's more of like guidelines for sure. It just so happens that a lot of people do disagree with the way Harmonix and Rhythm Authors tier things. I guess Rhythm Authors are just doing the charting. I doubt they have a say in it, but a lot of people do disagree with Harmonix's tiering. So yeah. But anyway, getting off topic there. Yes, I put The Wolf by Mumford & Sons 2 tiers higher into Solid when it's originally in Warmup. Then, alongside that, Light Up the Night, I think, is still the second song in Solid. I didn't really move it. Short Skirt, Long Jacket, I bumped down a little bit. It's right below Light Up the Night now. Tongue Tied, I also moved up a tier into Solid, because early in the song, it's got like this riff that I think, again, you have to alt strum, and if you're not very good with that, that riff will trip you up for sure. And for that reason alone, I put Tongue Tied in Solid. Albert comes next, so it's right around where it normally is. Same thing with All Over You. Then I Miss the Misery down a little bit, so now it's right after All Over You. I Am Electric, which again, they had an Apprentice, I bumped down. I think I Am Electric is a pretty tricky song, all things considered. Especially, like, that main riff, which can definitely, like, if you have smaller hands, or you're just not really, like, too familiar with 5 fret, I think that main riff in I Am Electric can definitely, like, hurt your hands a little bit. But as well as that, I also took Somebody Told Me. Instead of being what they consider to be the easiest and moderate, I bumped it down to be the hardest in Solid tier. Primarily because as someone who's not very consistent with alt strumming, even I can alt strum Somebody Told Me's like main riff pretty easily in the beginning. So yeah. Main verse riff, I should say. But yeah, even I can alt strum that consistently, and I'm not very good with alt strumming, so I put it as the hardest song in Solid tier. But then we move on to moderate, of course. So I then put I think the easiest song in moderate is My God Is the Sun by Queens of the Stone Age, followed by Light the Fuse, followed by Prayer, and then I put I Bet My Life. Which I was actually surprised by I Bet My Life, because before I replayed it, I didn't remember the chart for it. That guitar chart is actually, like, deceptively tricky, I think. Like, you're not gonna fail, but I think it's deceptively tricky for sure. But then I put Kick It Out, and then I also bumped the Feast and the Famine down a tier into moderate, because I think, again, that is also, like, a good bit harder than Harmonix tiered it, for sure. So I put it nearing the bottom of moderate, then I have Violent Shiver, and then I actually did bump Ain't Messin' Round and Lazaretto down to moderate. I think both of those were over-tiered a little bit. Like, Ain't Messin' Round's not too bad, all things considered, and Lazaretto, I mean, yeah, it has some, like, kind of tricky Hopo stuff, but, like, it's also a really slow-moving song. Like, I think I think anyone would be fine with Lazaretto. It's not that bad. But then that's where my moderate tier ends, and we move on to my challenging tier. In my challenging tier, I start off with A Passage to Bangkok, followed by Knock 'Em Down, then Cold Clear Light, and then The Seeker, and then The Impression That I Get, then Birth in Reverse, then Milwaukee, then Suspicious Minds, then No One Like You, and then Panama. And I actually did have a good few songs from Nightmare that I bumped down to challenging, including Milwaukee, No One Like You, and Panama. And my main reason for that is, like, Milwaukee is not that bad, like, at all. I don't think it's Nightmare, even if they said it was the easiest Nightmare song. I don't think it's Nightmare difficulty. And there's 4 songs here I think a lot of people might have questions about. And my thing is, I don't think The Seeker, No One Like You, and Panama, those last 2 especially, are far enough in difficulty away from A Passage to Bangkok to be a tier higher. Like, I really don't think those 3 can be a tier higher than A Passage to Bangkok. I don't think so. Like, Panama is the hardest of the 4 for sure, and that's why I'm saying it's the hardest in challenging, but, like, I don't think Panama is a Nightmare tier song. Like, it's not that bad, like, at all. No One Like You is honestly a really easy song with, like, 2 of its 3 solos being kinda tricky, but not tricky enough to be a Nightmare, I think. The Seeker's not too bad, and then A Passage to Bangkok was already in challenging, so was The Seeker, but yeah. I don't think No One Like You and Panama are a tier higher in difficulty than The Seeker and A Passage to Bangkok. And yeah, that's my challenging tier. Then we move on to Nightmare, where I said the easiest song in Nightmare I think is Recession, followed by Little Miss Can't Be Wrong, then Mainstream Kid, At Night in Dreams, and then I had Toys in the Attic, and then Pistol Whipped, and then Miracle Man, and then I bumped That Smell and Caught Up in You down from Impossible into Nightmare, because, again, I don't think That Smell and Caught Up in You can be Impossible tier songs. Like, they're not that bad. Like, kind of like with No One Like You, Caught Up in You, I think, is still harder than That Smell, which is why I have it at the bottom of Nightmare for me. But also, Caught Up in You, like, is a pretty easy song up until, like, its second solo. Its first one's not too bad, but its second solo is like, okay, this is like your typical Southern rock solo. Same thing with like the last solo in That Smell as well. But like, yeah, I don't think either are anywhere close to being difficult enough to be impossible tier. Like, not at all. Like, the hardest parts of them may trip you up a little bit. They may even trip you up enough to like make you fail like once. But I really don't think you'd be stuck on those 2 that much at all, personally. But outside of those 2 being bumped down from Impossible, I didn't really change much there. So we'll move on to Impossible tier. And I put the easiest impossible tier song as Start a Band, actually. I think Start a Band, again, it's similar in difficulty, I think, to That Smell Caught Up in You, but I think it's a little tougher. I think it's a little more difficult, so I put it as the easiest impossible tier song. And then I have Super Unknown, and then Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, and then Dead Black. And now, the one people may disagree with the most here, I really thought going into this project that I was going to give Dream Genie the most difficult guitar song. I really did, but the more I played through the on-disc set again, the more I just kept thinking about it, I realized, you know, Dream Genie, in the grand scheme of things, for just like passing through the song, just making your way through it like normal, Dream Genie's not that bad. Like, Dream Genie for guitar, its intro and outro are pretty easy. It has 2 easy solos in the middle, but like in between the intro and the outro, if you exclude the solos, like it is pretty difficult with its main riff, but I don't think that riff is difficult enough to make you fail necessarily. I just think that riff is difficult to score well on. For me, that riff is difficult to be consistent with. So that's why it's one of 2 songs that I have not 5-starred at all, period. Regardless of instrument. Because also for some reason, Dream Genie, like, people say its vocal melody is really easy, and there are other songs on here that I can do pretty well vocally, but I cannot get the vocal melody for Dream Genie, and I don't get it. Like, everyone says its vocal melody is easy, and I can't get it for some reason. But regardless, yeah, that and Metropolis are the only 2 I haven't 5-starred, but I don't think Dream Genie, again, just like naturally making your way through the set list, I don't think it is the hardest guitar song. It's just one of the hardest to score well on. But you can still like make your way through the set list without, I think, getting tripped up by Dream Genie too much. And then I have Metropolis Part 1, because, again, similar reason. There are absolutely tricky bits in the song, but I think even if you're not that good, like myself, I do think you can make your way through Metropolis, even its trickiest bits, without failing. Because, like, I'll be honest, I really haven't taken Metropolis into practice mode, and I don't think I've ever actually failed it. I don't think so. Maybe once or twice, but it's been a while, like quite a while. So there's that. So yeah, again, same thing with Dream Genie. Again, like, Metropolis is a prog rock epic. 100%. Dream Theater are legendary. But I don't think in terms of the set list, it being an endurance test makes it the hardest song, you know? But after Metropolis, I have Halls of Valhalla, which I think Halls of Valhalla could reasonably consider to be, like, overall, like, the hardest guitar song in the game. But I put Hail to the King, which I know some people, again, may disagree with, but I put Hail to the King as the hardest song because I think Hail to the King's opening riff, in a way, is almost... the way it's charted here is almost like the baby version of Through the Fire and Flames intro, where in a very similar way, both intros will keep a lot of people from even seeing the rest of the song unless you have no fail turned on, you know? And because of that, like, the intro is difficult, it'll keep a lot of people from even seeing the rest of the song. And yeah, the rest of the song is pretty easy until the solo, which again is a Sinister Gate solo, so it's difficult. But also then, coming out of that solo, you immediately go back to the intro riff. So there's 3 spots there that can genuinely make you fail, with one of those spots being the intro, which can keep you from seeing the rest of the song. So for that, I think Heroes of the King has to... So for that, I think Heroes of the King has to be the most difficult song. I think it has to be. If it's a song that can... If it's a song that, like I said already so many times, can literally make you fail out before you even see the rest of it, you know? So that's what I think is the tier... That's what I think should be the tiers of Rock Band 4 based on what I think is the most difficult, based on what I think is the least difficult to the most difficult. My warm-up tier has 10 songs, which will be on screen now. My Apprentice tier has 10 songs, which will be on screen now. My Solid tier has 9 songs. My Moderate also has 9 songs. My Challenging tier has 10. My Nightmare has 9. And my Impossible tier has 8 songs. That was me re-tiering all of Rock Band 4 with the on-disc set list. If you enjoyed that, leave a like, comment down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think are the hardest songs for you in Rock Band 4, what is the easiest. Let me know how you would maybe do the same idea. And if you want to see more, yeah, just, again, let me know. I would love to do more. I'd love to do Rock Band, like all the Rock Band games. I don't think I could try Guitar Hero, but I think that would be a bit tougher because I think, like, people don't really, from what I know, people don't really have issues with the way Neversoft tiered songs. That's mainly a Harmonix issue. But regardless, if you want to see more, just let me know and I'd love to do it. But until then, I'll see you later. Bye, guys.